Here we go. Welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. My guest today is Phil Downs. Phil, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on.
I'm stoked to be here. It's early. It's 7:30 in the morning or something like that at this point. We're at the last day of the CalFIA, which is the California Force Instructors Association Conference. I've been here for a couple of days, had some amazing interviews, had some amazing experiences, learned a lot, and Joshua Coleman, who's VP of this thing, put me together with you a couple months back or maybe a month ago now and said, hey man, this guy's coming in. You need to talk to him. He's got some really interesting stuff to share. And the cool thing about this is I've actually never had an attorney on the show. So let's let the cat out of the bag a little bit, specifically one that does what you do. So, and I'm going to let you talk all about that, but there's definitely some roads I want to go down here. And so to give people to listen to this that may have never heard us before, that know you and are listening to hear you speak, I am not a cop, don't have any law enforcement experience. I'm an idiot, right? Like I'm a gym guy, fitness industry guy. I'm a brick and mortar business owner in San Jose, California. This is sort of local to me. We're in Napa, which is like an hour and a half away. And I got into this just to learn. It started as a journey for me, kind of recognizing some deficiencies in the training world, really, because that's where I come from. Like I was watching these classes. I was attending like firearms training classes or jiu-jitsu or medical training and things I was kind of inspired to do that because my business was shut down in 2020 with COVID. And I recognize there's some weird stuff that is going on in the world. I wasn't like naive to any of what could be possible, but I started to recognize some things. I'm like, in myself, I'm like, I'm not prepared for some of these things. Probably I'm not as skilled as I think I am. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm going to check some stuff out. And as I did that, I got this perspective that kind of rocked my world, like, because I ended up training around a lot of law enforcement officers, and I was seeing things happening on the street where I lived in my neighborhood and my business, and they were impacting me, and I was having to have police interactions, and things were happening that were disturbing me, and that is, dude, why isn't that guy going to jail right now? Right? Especially here in California. Yeah. Like, he just broke into my business, or he just lit that garbage can on fire. And whatever. And what I found was the officers I was dealing with were not good at articulating the things that I was asking them. And that was shocking to me at the same time. So I was kind of seeing this, there's a skills piece that maybe there's some deficiencies in, and that kind of blew my mind a little bit because I have an expectation as a citizen, right? That if I call the police, certain things are going to happen, right? Certain things won't happen. But they were happening when they weren't supposed to and not happening when I thought they were supposed to. And again, that's my expectation. But at the same time, like when I wanted to understand the reasons why certain things were happening, I wasn't getting very good answers. And I felt like I was being gaslighted, at the same time. And again, that's an internal thing. That's a me thing. But what I learned was that there's some confusion there. There's some hesitation there. And you're part of that, I think, kind of what happens when our law enforcement doesn't know the right things to do. They may not be trained correctly, and they're not prepared for what happens when an incident happens, and then they wind up in a situation when they're like an internal affairs investigation, or they wind up in front of a DA, they're being deposed, and ultimately maybe wind up in court. And so that's my kind of intro to this. Sure. Because I think you're going to be able to give us a lot of perspective on a few things. And so that's it for me. Yeah. I want to hear about you and catch me up, man. Because again, I don't have a ton of intel on you. Yeah. So I'd just love to hear a little bit about your background and how you wound up where you are and what you're doing here this week.
Cool. Well, like I said, thanks for having me this morning. To make you feel better, I'm also not a cop. I defend police officers as part of my law practice. So I'm a partner at a law firm called Cholakian Associates. We're a small 10-lawyer firm
here in California,
in San Francisco, and we defend public and private entities and individuals also who might be public employees. Some people just in their private capacity when they are sued for. What's the best way to put this? Things that happen or that they are accused of doing that result in some sort of catastrophic personal injury. And so our defense work comes through when people need help, they have insurance. So I'm sure like you probably knew a lot of business owners that had property damage claims that they had to bring, and no one to bring it against, right? Because you can't, and even if you did find those people who torched things and smashed things, they don't have assets and money and all of that.
Ask me how I know.
Yeah, right. Well, 2020 was like it was kind of like a really scary. Luckily, it was mostly brief.
Yep.
But still very scary look into what societal decay looks like. I got into becoming a lawyer because I had a GI Bill that I needed to use, or I felt obligated that I had to use it. So I wasn't a bum, and it was a choice between, at the same time I took the LSAT, which is like the friggin' test you got to sit for and I got exactly average, right? Okay. I'm exactly the idiocracy guy, right? On my LSAT score. I took like the GRE or whatever, because I was like, well, maybe I'll just be a history teacher. I'll get my master's in history.
Okay.
And then I was like, I don't know.
Trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I was like, maybe lawyering is like better financially or anyhow. So I ended up doing that without knowing anything about, hey, there's this thing called civil defense. Hey, there's a whole area of law where you defend police officers when it's alleged that they violated the Constitution. Like I had no visibility of that. I did law school part-time at night, went to night school, started all the big life events after getting out of the Marines. Good. So got married, had kids, bought a house, had graduated law school, took the bar, passed it, had no job. Right?
No, I've arrived.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And it's like, congratulations, you now have you have
all
your
this
JD.
debt. Yeah.
There's ESQ after your name.
You got a mortgage. Yeah.
Mortgage. You have 10 cents in your checking account, and you have
you're ready to get started.
You're ready for the future.
You're ready to actually get started. Yeah.
No stress. And so my dad, he's a retired police officer.
Okay.
He was a sergeant in San Francisco. And my little brother currently is a cop in the city also. And he happens to run into one of his old academy classmates at a Catholic Charities fundraiser in the city, and this guy happened to be a partner at his own firm. He had his own spot, and my dad was just like, "Hey, do you think you could?
Gotcha.
Could my son call you?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I interviewed with the guy, and he goes, "Do you know what it is that I do?" And his name's Dale Allen. And he's still practicing, and he's one of the main, especially the old breed of the attorneys that defend cops.
Okay.
And I said, no, I have no idea. I've been applying everywhere to try to find a job.
Take anything I can get at this point.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
and he goes, well, this is what Section 1983 defense looks like. It's 42 USC Section 1983. That's the statute that people use to sue public entities and their employees for constitutional violations. Anyhow, that's how I started. And I got thrown right into, it's mostly in federal court. I got thrown right into trials and learned this practice area. And then through that, at the time, Dale had a bunch of Napa County cases. So the risk manager was how Dale got that referred business. He'd been trying to get it for years. He got it. He had this book of business. And he goes, I want you to help me with these Napa cases. So overnight, I meet guys like Kenny Van Dyke, and Chet Snyder, and Josh Coleman, and Dan Lehow, and a bunch of other guys, right? And these are now my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we did some good stuff. We had to do some litigating. We settled some. I got a lot of other stuff dismissed. And then from there, I started seeing kind of like what you were describing in your intro and also in our chat down the hallway. When your eyes get open to the like, oh, I didn't know things were like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had that kind of a moment. And that moment for me was, I'm seeing this repeated pattern. When a lawsuit is referred to the firm and I open the complaint and I'm reading it, and then the first thing I grab is the police report. And what struck me was, God, these reports are so poorly written.
Mm.
And that's not a dig against cops at all. They're writing to the standard that they
were taught.
Right, that they were taught, and that their sergeants and lieutenants
they were held accountable to.
Yeah, right. But the linguistic choices, a lot of euphemisms, a lot of weird jargon, a lot of things like I'll give you an example. And in the era of body camera, which is great, by the way, just for what I do from a legal defense standpoint. But when you have body camera video, or you have bystander, everything's
on a phone camera.
Everything. Oh my God. Or you have surveillance, whatever it is. You look at the video evidence, and you see like a really good like form football tackle kind of event happen, and you're like, that was a good hit. And then in my mind, I'm thinking of what are all the legal reasons? What are the objective facts within this legal analysis framework that I have to make this argument or this defense? I see good things happening. And then I read a police report and it says I guided the suspect to the ground. It's like, really?
Where did that come from?
The suspect was like, I'm trying to find the ground. If you would, could you guide me there?
Right.
Right? Like the word guide, it's guide dogs for the blind. Like that's a helpful thing. Guiding is a good thing.
But it ain't matching up here.
It's not matching up. And then what I found through that was, I would just ask questions because I was curious. And I'm like, why do you guys write? Why don't we write like this? And that's what my sergeant wants me to write like. And then you talk to sergeants and they're like, well, that's the way I was taught. Then you talk to lieutenants and you're like, really? Are we teaching guys to say things that are just sort of like euphemistic jargon? And he goes, well, otherwise, what are we going to say? We tackled the guy. I mean, it's going to look bad. And it's like, well, but it looks like the way it looks. And
that is what happened.
That is what happened.
That's the truth.
Right. And so I said, gents, if, in criminal court, there's no deposition. So if the issue before in a criminal trial is just whether there's evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the suspect who's accused of a crime committed those elements of that crime.
Okay, I'm with you.
Okay. In civil court, it's something completely different. It's in this police context, the suspect alleges as a plaintiff that their constitutional rights were violated. And in the Fourth Amendment context, it's a proposition that the way in which they were seized, their person was seized, that it was done excessively, therefore unreasonably. So it violated the Fourth Amendment. And so the police officer has to do a lot more to account for themselves. Explain it, right? And so when we got to the explain part, I was like, man, we're way behind the curve. Or details that were not contained within the report suddenly come out in the middle of testimony and deposition.
It's not good.
And it's like, we kind of look like we just made that up. But I know you didn't just make it up because I've watched the video, right? And I've seen this and I inferred it in your report. And I think somewhere in between these 5 lines, you actually were observing the thing that you just now said spontaneously under oath for the first time in deposition.
So can I time you out for just a second?
Sure,
because where my head is going with this is this this isn't, well, I'm not going to answer my own question, but is this, they just didn't think to write that in there? Or is this, I wrote that, now I see the body cam footage, and now I realize that I left that out, and that was a big part of it, but it just didn't come up in the report writing process?
I think,
or is it, I left that out on purpose because I was coached to do that?
No, I think where it comes from is from the standpoint of I didn't know I was supposed to put that in there.
Got it.
And the reason and this is so, in observing this pattern, that was a good question. In observing this pattern and seeing it iterated time and time again, and just asking questions of these guys and trying to find out, like, what was it that how did we get here, right? Because I'd see mostly, and I mean mostly like 9.5 out of 10 instances, good use of force. It is a rare outlier where I'm like, we're just going to settle this case.
This is not good.
As soon as we possibly can because, not good. So I'd have cops that I believed in, that I knew were morally correct. They were unable to articulate the constitutionally relevant points because they did not have No one gave them that foundational training in. This is the legal framework of like what it is you're going to use to justify yourself. So here's the analogy. And as soon as I said it this way, guys got it. Right. They got it right away. All right. So my knowledge of the penal code is iffy because I don't practice it. But a robbery is a 211, California Penal Code Section 211. A robbery, for something to be a robbery, it must meet elements, factual elements.
Okay.
And there must be evidence of those elements, and that evidence has to put it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Gotcha.
Those elements are codified in the statute, and they're reflected also in a jury instruction. So when I use this analogy with police officers, I said, look, let's say you write a report about a 211 and you leave out through threat or intimidation or force, right? You leave out an element of the
statute.
Do you have a 211? No. Right. And you go to a preliminary hearing, and you don't have any mention or any evidence of that essential element of the crime. What's going to happen at the preliminary hearing? And he's like, the defendant's going to be released. He's not going to be held to answer. Right. And you're going to be made fun of by all of your peers because you wrote a substandard report and you did substandard police work. You would never make that mistake more than once, right? First of all, you wouldn't make it to begin with because your sergeant would catch it. And if your sergeant didn't catch it, my God, your lieutenant's going to catch that.
Right.
And if by the time it got to the prelim, the DA looks at it and is like, you can't even bring this, right? So everyone knows that. But I go, are you familiar with the Ninth Circuit Civil Model Jury Instruction 9.25? And they're like, I've never heard of any of that. And I go, well, that is the jury instruction that in my world, I'm going to argue to the jury. I'm going to walk them through this instruction to explain to them why your use of force was objectively reasonable.
Okay, so can you go back to that? The 9.25, what is that?
So 9.25 is the jury instruction. Is within the federal, civil, and criminal courts, there are model jury instructions, and they're by circuit. So, the Ninth Circuit includes lots of states: California, Hawaii, Alaska, Idaho, Montana, a bunch of others. Each circuit has a model jury instruction for whatever it is that the question might be in front of that court.
It's not the same circuit to circuit?
It's not the same circuit to circuit. It's not verbatim circuit to circuit. It's very, very close, but it's not the same.
That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Again, more inconsistency.
Yeah, okay. Right. There's a lack of uniformity. Well, which is also why,
It's the Constitution's the Constitution.
True.
So if you've reached federal level, why is there
not uniformity?
You don't have to answer that question.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a very deep level question.
Right.
But
it's how the courts are organized.
As a citizen, I assume
you just expect.
I'm going to federal court. Like, this is how this operates anywhere you go. But it doesn't, is what you're saying.
No. And like, just think about some recent newsworthy events where the Supreme Court of the United States was involved in deciding a question.
Happens all the time.
The reason for that is because there's disuniformity among the circuits. Okay. There's a question where you'd have various levels of federal judges who would say, I think it's A. And then another judge says, no, I think it's B. And then maybe in a different circuit, you have another judge who's like, guys, it's not a letter, it's a number. It's 2. And then eventually through a very tedious, it would be too hard to, we would kill this podcast interview if we went through this.
I know I took you on a little tangent here.
It gets to the top and people basically say, answer this for us.
Right. Got you.
What is it? Is it A, B, or 2?
That's how we get there.
That's how we get there.
So what I just learned, I think I learned, so if I can repeat this back, is that because there is non-uniformity, we have a U.S. Supreme Court, right, that ultimately ends up making the decisions that are the people don't necessarily have agreement on.
Right.
And I think I understood that part, but I didn't understand the underlying reasons why that might be occurring in some cases.
Yeah.
Maybe not all the things. Okay, sorry. That was a very good explanation.
Sure.
All right, so we're going back to the officer now who doesn't understand 9.25.
And so they've never heard of it. And then I just go, well, just tell me what is your... So real quick. So the reason why it's important that they've never heard of that is that they have no idea what a jury instruction is. A framework. It's not a template, but it's like, we're going to argue this. We're going to argue these elements. And there's, I think there's 15 separate elements now in the jury instruction. With the last element is discuss other relevant factors here. It's like a catch-all.
The totality of
the circumstances. Right. And so there's stuff that's in this jury instruction where it's like you're leaving out, I know you observed facts that are relevant to this element and you left it out. That's like leaving out the thing about the 211. Like you don't have a 211 now. So we have to play catch up. We're starting on the back foot.
Is it fair to say that in the 9.5% of 9.5 out of 10 times that the reason you're even there is because that information was left out, because the understanding of how important it is to put it in there and how to articulate it correctly has 100%. Put them in that situation.
100%.
That's disturbing.
I know. It's like it's a partially self-inflicted. I mean, to be fair, anyone can sue for anything.
That is true. But here in California, that is for sure true.
And what folks don't, this is like, here's a little tidbit for your civilian non-attorney audience, is that just because someone has sued, it doesn't mean a hill of beans. It doesn't mean nothing. All it means is that I like to tell people that the threshold to step into the courtroom is as tall as the piece of paper that you file at the window, right? If you can allege something that if it were true, because that's how it's treated at the pleading stage. When the pleading stage is when you file your complaint, when you allege whatever it was that you're alleging happened. If what you alleged is true, the question is then, are you entitled to relief? And if that answer is yes, your lawsuit remains filed and you get to go through discovery. And that doesn't mean that every lawsuit is meritorious. So anyhow, what I was finding was in this pattern, as I'd see it iterated again and again, is that officers didn't know what facts were relevant, right? They were writing to their training. That's how they were crafting their reports. There was the weird language issues where it was like, guys, we either sound like we're in a laboratory or we sound like we're trying to hide something. And that's not good because it makes your credibility look really bad. And then why are we leaving out like all this important stuff? And that got me really interested in wanting to teach. My first job out of the Marine Corps was teaching high school. Okay. I love teaching. I love teaching. I love coaching.
Go back to the history.
Yeah. So I've got, exactly. So with my kids, my 10-year-old son, like I coach his football team.
Okay. Got it.
I'm coaching at a local high school, strength and conditioning stuff. So I'm like,
all right, right on.
I love being involved with and watching people learn gets me really fired up. And so I was like, wow, is there really an opportunity to do this? And I ended up meeting some really interesting people and had opportunities to do teaching, traveled around the state, teaching legal updates, stepping back a little bit from like active day-to-day practice and doing more of this, like, look, trying to spread the good news of the Constitution. Work, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then getting back into practice and where I am now, and then keeping these relationships going so that now, like, for example, with CalFIA being able to be involved. And then like the first day of this symposium, the briefing room was a client of ours.
Gotcha. I caught a little bit of that. I was in another interview, but I did get some of it.
Yeah. So the briefing room, Jason Lewis, who I met by just getting out into the world and talking about this stuff. What they do, I mean, is fantastic. It's like, yeah, that's a source of, I rely on him to tell me when the cool cases are published. Because I don't see that stuff every day.
So this is the thing. So like, again, another little side trip here. So I'm listening to you and I'm going like, where's the breakdown? Right. And you talk, they're training to the level that, or they're writing to the level they've been trained or coached, right? They can only repeat what they think they know, right? And what I heard you say is they're pretty unclear about some really important things. Yeah. They're clear maybe about a lot of other things, like how to write this thing the way I've been told to write it. Yes. And, like internally they're like, no, I know I did the right thing and everybody's telling me to do the right thing, but I've got to go through this process. But they're finding out about how they, for lack of a better term, fucked up that process when they're in this really serious situation now where you're potentially walking into federal court to defend yourself, right?
Exactly.
And so is everybody else. And I imagine at the same time, everybody's like, oh, so this dude's like, he's getting in trouble. Like, so going back to your football and your football experience, like, don't touch the guy on crutches.
Yeah.
Like, don't hang out with that guy. That's bad juju, right? Like, so now they're in this space, and there's probably not a lot of people they can go to on their team to help them understand what this process is, the things that you're telling them, because one, they've never been there yet, right? And, or two, they didn't care to know when their other buddy got into this process because he was the guy on the crutches, and it's like, and I'm busy, and I have things to do, and I'm trying to be a dad, and there's other skills I need to keep up with, and they're sending me this other training, but it didn't prep me for this thing. That sounds like a pretty lonely place to be.
I was about to say lonely, and that's an interesting visual metaphor, the guy in the crutches, because like what I'll tell a client always is, do not talk about this with anybody except me, because as soon as you have conversations about stuff, that's discoverable. So if you're at deposition, which is under oath questioning by the opposing attorney, and they say, have you spoken with anyone about the incident? And if you say yes, they're going to ask who, and you have to tell them. And if it's like everybody,
and those people are deposed,
then all those people are deposed, and they'll say, what did officer so-and-so tell you about it?
And then they go through the process of, I was told I shouldn't say certain things, and I need to say it this way, which makes it maybe feel or seem unbelievable. We're not telling the truth. It's manufactured.
Right.
There's a conspiracy here to try to cover things up.
Now the theme at trial is they cook their story. Right.
And that's the narrative.
That's the narrative. Yeah. So what I've really enjoyed in being involved with CalFIA, because CalFIA is a group of guys who recognizes that, and this gets to your question about why are they even
why
here?
is it why
is it that the officers they're absolutely meeting the standard to which they've been taught.
Right. But what is that metric?
But why is there a deviation between the standard at which they've been taught and what it should be?
The reality.
Yeah. And I think it's bureaucratic inertia. Honestly, that's just from my perspective, that's my opinion. Here's an example. So, and this came up in the briefing room presentation here 2 days ago. California Post, the Peace Officer Standards and Training. So the bureaucratic administrative office that's responsible for setting the standards for peace officers in California. When they talk about legal updates, there's a requirement for ongoing legal update training. And the way that it's crafted, the requirement that has to be in the syllabus is Graham v. Connor, which was published in 1989, Tennessee v. Garner, which predates Graham, and in reality deals with the very minor issue that it doesn't. In other words, that's not the case that I would start reading.
I think I understand this, but for people that don't know what those are, you should. It's not hard to figure those out.
Yeah, Tennessee v. Garner and Graham v. Connor are important in the same way that Leviticus and Exodus are important to the understanding of the biblical story.
It's a great analogy,
right? But that's not the entire dang thing. You still have to get to the New Testament. Okay, so and then it says Hayes v. California, which was maybe it was like 2011, but that's again. From a lawyer standpoint, I'm like, guys, the issue in Hayes, like very limited applicability to your understanding of the broader landscape of case authority. It was a niche issue. Okay, and then it says, and pending cases. Well, there's no friggin' way you can review pending cases because they're pending.
So we're talking about like AB 95. What's the or is this 295 is the one we're talking about?
Oh, so AB 395.
AB 395. Sorry. Okay. So there you go. It. So
you've heard all
the stuff. Trying to put it all together.
Right.
So because it seems like what that is like a conglomeration, right, of all of these things. And if you don't understand what all of those things are, this new bill doesn't make sense.
Right. So the legislature of the state will set out whether the Assembly bill or the Senate bill, whether it modifies or amends part of the government code or the penal code. So like penal code section 835A, that was amended by AB 392, sorry. Yep. And then there's SB 2, which amends a bunch of different parts of the government code. And there's there's lots of legislative initiatives that get passed, and then existing statutes, language is changed, or new subdivisions are added. So there's a whole host of state law changes that have happened in California that affect law enforcement. And in that regards, sort of the state saying to its peace officers, here's the limit and extent of your authority, right? Now, the state limit on authority, that's a pretty hard line, right? So if you exceed that line at the state level, so what I try to describe to people is that the star that you wear, right, which I think is funny symbolically, because stars are things you aim at. They're high objects, right? So you're the ideal. So here's an artifact that we're going to give you that represents that ideal. Okay, you're going to wear that, and then it's got magic powers. You get to act under the color of it to do a lot of things, including if it's reasonable, or under California standard, if it's necessary, taking another person's life. So it's a heavy, heavy responsibility. If you exceed that authority that we give you, if you exceed the magic of this star, you might be prosecuted criminally.
You go to prison.
Now, in the civil court, the limit on authority is the boundary that the Constitution places on the state. And the reason why the federal Constitution even applies is through the 14th Amendment. So that's how it applies to the rest of the states. And so the Fourth Amendment question comes up. You might have something that, under a Fourth Amendment analysis, we're always looking to see whether it's objectively reasonable, whether this seizure was objectively reasonable. And what that means is, impliedly, the government can intrude upon your Fourth Amendment interests, but only the reasonable intrusions are the ones that are okay. It's the unreasonable intrusions that there's some sort of consequence for, and that consequence is money. Now, usually, it's not, this is back to your guy in the crutches analogy. Usually, it's not the officer's money. It's the public entity's going to defend. They have insurance. There's always an allegation of punitive damages. Punitive damages sound like what they are what they sound like. It's punishment. And sometimes, although this is very technical, punitive damages are not, as a matter of rule, always covered by someone else's insurance, right? That officer feels that they get a letter from their employing agency's insurance group or carrier or whatever that says, if this happens, we have to tell you right now, you might be on the hook.
You're on the hook.
Yeah. And so having gone through trials, taking trials to verdict, sitting there with the officers when the verdict is read, the gravity of the black hole that's their person sitting next to you, can feel the tension, and then you can feel the guys are just like, when we get a good result,
relief,
they're just like, oh my God. And I go, I bet you won't write another report like that again.
Right.
And that brings it full circle to this thing where I had, in one of my cases that I had, this is early on as a baby attorney, I had a guy who, along with a couple other officers, had this, these two very drunk young people at a BART station in the city. There was a kerfuffle between the male subject and the janitor, the BART janitor.
Okay.
Now, the girlfriend, who was more inebriated than the boyfriend, I was just kind of acting out. And the closest thing I've seen to being guided to the ground is what happened, right? It was very much a guide, but the officer who was primarily involved in it had been sued before. And the partner I was working for at the time had defended him and defended it successfully. And so this is his second time around. And because, like I said, there's nothing that's going to prevent someone from suing you, right? If they can make the allegation, they'll make the allegation. His report was like dead nuts, the best report I'd ever read. And his ability to articulate himself was just like, whew. And I was like, man, this is a great report. He goes, yeah, I learned my lesson, like whatever it was, 12 years ago, 15 years ago. He goes, where I got sued, he goes, I've never made those same mistakes ever again. So I was like, oh man, there's really something out there that I think that law enforcement generally, not just in the state of California, but nationwide, can benefit from just cracking the book right? Proactively, and to learn why is case authority important? So an opinion that's been published, why is that important for you to read? And how do you go get that stuff?
That's what I was just going to say, because this is a bit of knowledge and there's a bit of skill. Mm-hmm. And where do I acquire those? Because they're not being practiced. Yeah. Is what you're telling me.
Right.
They're not being. It's not being the knowledge isn't being transferred. That's kind of a cliche term. At whatever level it should be transferred, as it seems to me, right? And the skill certainly isn't being practiced. And I don't know how you can practice the skill if you don't have the knowledge.
Yeah, if you can't acquire it, right? That's like saying, oh, I want you to physically train and get in shape, but I'm not going to really tell you where to start looking to figure out how to do that. You don't have any equipment.
The analogy that was given to me the other day was like Scott Savage was sitting in that chair a couple days ago. And we were talking about like, well, you own a gym, and if somebody comes in and they go, hey, I want to learn how to squat, or whatever, and there's no equipment in the gym, but I have a big screen, right, and a PowerPoint presentation, and I go, well, let me show you all the things.
This is below parallel, right?
Exactly.
This is not below parallel. Yeah.
Good. Great. There you go. There's the bar. Put weights on it.
Yeah.
You're good.
Put as much weight on it as you think you can handle. Right. Go for it.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it is the same thing. Totally is. And so what we've done, and here's the I don't know if this is irony or if this is just kind of like oh man. So the standards under California state standards for training peace officers, I think nationwide it's like the gold standard. It's like the best. It's the most number of hours, certainly by far, of anybody. And it still misses.
Big time.
Huge. And it's all like, where is the boundary of your authority? If you're going to play a game, this is what I whenever I get a chance to talk to groups of cops, I always say, like, if you and I were to play a game, if I said, do you want to play with me? They would say, what are we playing? Mm-hmm. I would have to explain the game to you, right?
There's rules.
Yeah.
There's strategy.
There is strategy. There's rules. And the rules are important because you'd want to know, like, well, if I can't break the rules, because if I break the rules, I probably won't win, right? And I want to win.
I don't want to be penalized.
Yeah.
Right.
So
this is easy.
This is easy stuff.
Right.
So who among us would play a game blindly? Yeah. Or just say, like, sure, I'll play a game.
Especially if there's like, and I want you to play a game with me, but there's money on the line. I want you to winner takes.
Yeah, and not just money, but like your livelihood, and maybe even if you commit a grave enough penalty, your freedom. Yeah, you good? You ready to go? You would want at least to be like,
I have some questions.
You'd be like, is there a rule book that I can consult? Right, because there's certain boundary lines that matter, and it's even more complicated because these boundary lines are nuanced and they're fact intensive, and so these guys. This is like, guys and gals out there are asked to do this job, and which is not easy. Is not easy at all. And I believe instinctively, they overwhelmingly, the majority of them make the right decision. And it's just a matter of, helping before something happens. Helping people understand, like, okay, I've seen this pattern before because I've at least read this case and this is familiar to me. And so before I actually have to make this split-second decision in the heat and the uncertainty of this moment, rapidly evolving moment, I came up with a pretty good plan ahead of time. And I know what my resources are. And I know that I don't have to do something right now. I can wait for a more advantageous time, keeping myself and my team safe as we try to figure out an alternative solution. And if that alternative solution is thwarted by the suspect because of noncompliance or their, active violence toward me, I know that constitutionally and within my state authority,
I'm inside those right and left.
I'm inside the right and left lateral limits, exactly, and I can move freely, and that empowers people to be, and I think to tie this to, like, what you had said at the beginning about, what COVID was the catalyst. That catalyst and the sneak peek into, like, this is what happens when society falls apart. It's not freaking pretty. Having the appropriate tension, yes, but also the balance in the relationship between the citizenry and the state is critical to our social health. And so if we don't have police officers who are confident in what they're supposed to do to be able to make decisions, then things that should happen or that people like you as a business owner or a homeowner would expect, like, wait, I thought that the cops were going to, and I feel uncomfortable with this, where they're not confident enough to make the decisions that society expects them to make, or they are making decisions that they believe are correct, but exceed some boundary, whether it's constitutional or otherwise. And then there's another segment of society that's like, well, the state is abusive and I don't trust them. And so now we're just going to like tear everything down the middle. And so the more I believe that the more that law enforcement officers have an understanding of the rules of this game, let's say the rules of the game that they play, because it is a game, it's a competitive game. Bad guy wants to commit crime and not get caught.
There are winners and losers.
There are winners and losers, absolutely. And public safety is at stake. That's what's being played. And the more that we understand the rules of it, the better off I think it'll be for everyone.
So a couple things takeaways for me as I'm listening to you. First, you're going through the lack of knowledge, skill, and then what that drives is a lack of confidence. And then you talked about the moment and having to make decisions. And I think more than ever, especially with the body-worn cam footage and the cell phones and everything else, what you see out there, and this has kind of been the theme, is there's a component that lies in between there, and that's hesitation. Yeah. I think I know, but I'm not really sure, right? And I think I have a skill or I have a tool on my tool belt. I'm not sure that and that moment's happening, man. Like, and it's happening right now. And so I make a decision without the confidence after maybe I've hesitated, right? And that hesitation is created or taken now time away from me making the decision to do something different. Again, get more distance, wait for backup, whatever, use a particular tool. And then things happen, and then they find out about all this when they're in the worst possible situation, which is now my freedoms could be taken away from me. You do a very good job of uncomplicating the very complex. This is a great conversation for me because I'm not a smart person. I really want to be and try to be. So I really appreciate the way you're handling this. And so, and I think that's probably the majority of cops too, right? Like, and I'm not in an insulting way, but just like they want to know, right? And just explain it to me in a way that I can understand it and then I can actually utilize it.
They love hearing it.
So that's the other thing. They don't know what they don't know, right? So, and when they hear it, they're like, holy shit, like, tell me more, right? I imagine when you're like, why didn't anybody tell this to me before? And then they're probably looking at you like you're their best friend, their only friend, right, in this situation.
I did up in Roseville, I spent a couple of days with that police department a couple years back, going through 835A. So California Penal Code Section 835A, and the changes that happened. And
they were significant.
Oh my God, it was huge. And
they didn't know.
No, well, I was also
in the camp. They just put out a memo.
Yeah,
nothing's changed.
I was also in the camp as an attorney where I just read like what the law enforcement defense side was saying about it, and I was like, if anyone asked me, I'm like, looks like the same thing. I mean, I believed that it should be the same. It's pretty much analogous to the Fourth Amendment. And then, so when that Officer Fletcher, San Leandro Police, there was a Walmart. It was the Walmart shooting in San Leandro, and he was prosecuted by the then DA O'Malley in Alameda County. So my buddies, like my guys here, Calfia, sent me a text on the Calfia text thread, and they were like, "What do you think?" And because they sent me out O'Malley's press conference statement where she announced the charges, and I was like, hold on one second, and I pulled up the statute and I read it, and I read it again, and I read it again, and I was like, what am I missing? And so I just started reading the thing backwards. I read from the definitions up to the top.
Oh, interesting.
I read in reverse, and I was like, I get it now. The whole thing's different. So I just texted him back. The whole thing's different. I was wrong, right? And so when I was up in Roseville teaching this, the guys were joking me. It was a 2 or 3 day thing, and they were like, after day one, I wanted to quit. I was thinking about, dusting off my welding equipment and like getting a different job. And then they go, and then you kind of brought back the motivation on day 2. And I was like, well, it's good because it's still possible to do your job really well and safer for you safer for the officers to your left and right, and better for society because we're following the rules that the legislature says we want you to follow. And it's possible to do it, but you have to start from the standpoint of like, how do you learn? Awareness, how do you learn? And you'd mentioned something that I thought was interesting too about, the hesitation. And, coming from the United States Marine Corps, I was an infantryman. I was an infantry platoon commander.
Okay.
Hesitation is deadly. Mm-hmm. Can't hesitate. So I come from the school of thought of there is zero hesitation. Mm-hmm. It's maximum violence now, mm-hmm. right? And then that's what you do. Policing's obviously different. And so if you hesitate, there's a lag between what you're observing in your action plan, because you're like, I've got to figure out, I can't just go, mm-hmm. right? But if you hesitate,
there's repercussions.
Yeah. And hesitation is stressful. Man, when you're like, I need to make a decision right now.
It lives in your brain after.
Oh my God, yeah. It's really stressful. And then it also, it ruins your ability to think, I believe, because now you're wrapped up in this point of friction and you're like, I can't escape it. And hesitation will come from lack of confidence. Mm-hmm. And then you default to what it is that you know. And what I have found is that for as little time as police officers will spend, and it's not their fault. It's not like they have the option to spend a bunch of time learning about case authority and being able to talk through like what these constitutional concepts mean. They spend so little time doing it because it's so little time is required. Mm-hmm. They spend a lot of time doing a lot of gadget stuff.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. So the gadget stuff is like, and I think this is a natural outgrowth of any capitalistic enterprise. You have a public service requirement where the government needs to do something. Defense, for example. Well, you need gear to do that. To provide for the defense of your nation, you need gear, you need weapons. So is the government going to run its own factories? No, that doesn't make any sense. So we're going to hire other factories.
Private entities.
Yeah, private entities to develop cool stuff for us.
And they do a pretty good job.
They do a dang good job of it. Mm-hmm. And I've used
a bunch of them here.
Yeah.
I mean, this show doesn't happen without some of those companies.
It doesn't.
We got like, there's a really cool, I think it's hydraulic or gas powered. You weren't here yesterday, but they demoed it where it's their stop sticks, but it's basically a unit you put on the side. It's like air charge or gas charge, and it shoots out basically like this expandable ladder, and it shoots it across the road so you don't have to jump out there. It works on remote. You can stand like 100 yards away, as an example. The Surefire guys are here, for all the weapon-mounted lights and things like that, and lasers. That's a private entity, right? There's a couple of RAP systems out there. There's some arrest and control stuff out there. All from private entities.
Which is where your innovation is going to come from.
100%. Anyway, I say all that to say is like, it's driven by money.
And you need it.
And the private entities have that.
And then sometimes the balance gets a little tilted where it's like, oh, hey, we need to find, because what's looked for, I think this is where it goes wrong. The aim just gets a little bit off. It's like, we need a tool that's going to fix our need to have to use force against people, mm-hmm. right? And it's like, well, no such tool exists. Mm-hmm. That was the whole idea behind, we're going to have a taser.
Mm-hmm. They're here.
Mm-hmm. and tasers are great. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes, yeah. But it's a less lethal option.
It's not the answer to every problem.
No, and constitutionally speaking, the taser is an intermediate to high-level use of force. Mm-hmm. And so when taser first unveiled itself into the law enforcement community, and I'm blanking on the name. It's either McPherson. I'm blanking on the name of the case, but there's a case that happened, a lawsuit involving a taser early on. This goes back to the early 2000s. It made its way to the Ninth Circuit. It was heard in the early 2000s, and I think it's Bryant. Anyway, that was the first time the courts had to deal with, like, when is the taser objectively reasonable to use? And the facts of what happened were, you had a college-age kid coming down from Santa Barbara down further south after an all-weekend bender.
Okay.
And was caught speeding, actually several times, but at the last time, I think maybe he had finally reached his emotional limit, and he's throwing a fit. He's standing outside his vehicle. The officer who pulled him over is writing him up his ticket. The kid's in his boxer shorts, and he's just like, he's had it, And so there's no video of it. This predates the days of video. And so what's described in the facts is that he was like kind of just acting out. He's literally throwing a fit. And the officer, the tasers end up
being deployed,
as they say. I like to say the taser shot the subject in the chest with the taser, and the subject was immobilized as a result of that. And the officer explained it as, well, this guy like ramped up his emotions. He was super agitated. He seemed like, I'd interpreted that as violent.
Threatening.
Threat of violence. And then he took a step off the curb. And I mean, how long do you want me to let him step toward me before I...
Great question.
Yeah. And so what the court ended up having to decide was like, well, where on the... Because this is an important part of the rules of the game. Your force that you use becomes the measurement of the intrusion into the Fourth Amendment right. Mm-hmm. And so if you use a high degree of force, then you've made a significant intrusion into the Fourth Amendment. Now, significant intrusions into the Fourth Amendment are fine so long as they're what? So long as they're reasonable. Now, what makes it reasonable? Well, it's the totality of the circumstances.
The totality of the circumstances.
And the government's interest in using that force at that time would be defined as starting with crime, threat, resistance. Those are the big three that come from Graham. But then the rest of the elements under 9.25 or wherever your circuit's model jury instructions are numbered, those are relevant as well. So things like the change in the circumstances and how quickly the officer had to react, whether there were less intrusive alternative means available, who's more culpable for causing the situation, right? Do we have poor tactical choices that then lead us to a situation where we had to use lethal force or a high level of force to resolve mistakes that were made? Or do we have it where the subject is the cause of it? They're the one who's culpable because they did, X, Y, and Z. All of that stuff is super relevant. So the taser is not a panacea to using force. It is itself an intrusion that has to be justified. So then you're like, well, if I don't spend any time learning my combatives.
So I was just going to say, like, we reached for a tool as an answer to a problem.
Because I only know and I'm comfortable with this tool. And what happens is, and I know this from personal experience, in that moment of intense stress, you default to what it is that you know best. I had the benefit compared to what police have with the rules of engagement were not anything like the Fourth Amendment, right? So it took a lot of the thinking out of it for me. I didn't have to be like, well, can I go now? It's like, no, we're going. For an officer, it's like, if you're not confident with your hands, if you're not confident on your feet, you don't have an understanding of distance, how to manage distance, you don't have good defense, right? You have situations where, this is starting to escalate up, but you don't have anything in between you and the next tool that you have. And if all of your training has been on tools, right? And the focus is on tools and like, we got this new tool and we got this.
And how do those tools make it there? Going back to private entities, because I didn't have to pay for this.
Right.
Somebody else paid for this.
And someone gave me a presentation on it, told me this is going to be cool and this is what we're going to use. Right. And so we're seeing this now, especially since 2020 and that summer and subsequent social unrest and protests that are not mostly peaceful and things like that. You have tools that were designed primarily to do to help you seize individuals, and those tools are being used to disperse crowds, and that creates a really interesting constitutional problem, because if you shoot indiscriminately, let's say 40 millimeter foam stuff, or you deploy the rubber pellet grenade stuff, or even flashbangs, or there's indiscriminate use of pepper spray or CS, and you're seizing. Each time you that tool or that thing touches an individual,
it's an intrusion.
It's an intrusion into that individual's Fourth Amendment right. It's a seizure, and so you have to justify that, right? And so this is to say to back up to like, where's the focus need to be? Necessarily, law enforcement, like any government endeavor, similar to defense, similar to health, you have to have private enterprise involved because that's where your innovation is going to come from. We have to be really careful about becoming tool dependent, right? If the focus in the training is on, we got to get people trained up on how to use this new thing, it's like, yeah, but you haven't even.
We don't have skills.
They don't have the skill. We don't even have the knowledge base to understand when that thing is within the boundary lines. That's the problem. That's the problem. And we don't want to go find out where the boundary line is by running the experiment through the federal courts. It's costly.
Because they're going to tell us.
Oh, yeah, they are going to tell us where they're going to. The only thing that the federal court can tell you is when the boundary line has to be decided by a jury, or whether a judge can decide the boundary line.
And then it is what it is after that.
Right. And so, from a risk management standpoint, even the payouts, because some cases are 8-figure, 7-figure, those start to add up pretty quick. Those come out of the tax dollars, right? Those public entities have to insure themselves. They have to divert resources from things like special education for kids to be like, well, we got to cover our risk over here. And so there's only upside. There's only benefit to more police officers learning and understanding, and also like having the access to the resource, but then like developing I'm not saying it has to be enjoyable, right? Case law is pretty dry, but
it's necessary though.
It's so necessary. Yeah. And you can have fun with it, like learning and talking about these things. And why not learn from someone else's example, right? And then go out and apply what you just learned, and apply it to your day-to-day interactions, and you'll start to see like, oh no, yeah, it'll start to make sense. And to do that without having to be sued first, that seems like an ideal solution to me. I don't know.
No, there's so much there, and it's no surprise. I mean, the theme of what you're talking about obviously fits in exactly to what's going on here at the conference. And I didn't know really what to expect when I got here, but what I'm noticing, or what I have found, and I've really enjoyed about it, is it has been entertaining, right? Not just because I don't know it and I'm a nerd and fascinated by certain things, but the level of presentation, like the quality of presentation that I've seen, how they are making it engaging, how they are making it fun, but also the theme behind not siloing the training. So there is going to have to be some level of PowerPoint. We're going to have to sit in a classroom for this, but it shouldn't just stay there. It should overlap into what you're doing on the mat in the DT room, what you're doing on the range, right? And then those three things should be overlapping, right? And then what we're doing in terms of report writing, and hey, if my firearms instructor is giving me this thing and we're talking a little bit of legal in this, like here's how it transfers over into the report writing piece. And then sergeants need to be on board with that to make sure when they're reading that shit, it's matching up and we're all speaking the same language. So, I mean, that's ultimately where it should be, but it isn't. And that's what's been basically defined here. And that's what everybody here is trying to fix. So I imagine you have some answers on like, how do we make it better? Like, and where are you having success with this? What are the things that you're doing that you can share for people to be thinking about and change their perspective on, oh, look, man, I know I need to know this stuff. I got so many fucking things to do. And the excuse is always going to be like, I don't have the money or the time, in my budget or my personal life or whatever, to go out and take these classes and go to these courses and whatever else. So I think there's a lot of different avenues, which is part of it. Like, doesn't all have to come from one thing. Don't expect the government to give you all the training that you need in order to defend yourself in court when the shit goes down, right? And or the skill or lack thereof that puts you in this situation in the first place, or knowledge. So what do you got for us, man? Like, how do we fix this? Like, is there a framework that you've seen be successful you're working through now that seems to make sense and it's coming out the other side looking pretty good? Yeah,
I'd say, and this would be my own self-interest, but I'm not trying to make a pitch to anyone, because there's other people who do what I do in this area that practice it. But have an involvement with your every agency's entity, whether it's county, city, district, whatever, is part of a risk pool of other counties, municipalities, district entities that combine together to manage cases that come through. Those risk pools assigned to attorneys like me, come find us before you get sued, right? Like I went to
costs a lot less money that way too.
It totally does. So like I went to the city of Livermore and did a whole full day, and this is just because Livermore is a member of one of the entity groups that is pulled together, and our firm had just joined on with it, and this was just like, this is just marketing. We didn't charge for it, even
better.
It's great. Like I will do some of this stuff for absolutely free. Right.
That's what everybody here is doing that at some level.
Exactly. And so, because I care about it, and I spent a whole day with those guys, and we talked about 5150s. Right. And it was good training. It was good stuff.
Plenty of those here.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, especially because the state of California has decided that the way that it wants to manage its public mental health treatment program is to allow people to die in the gutter.
Yeah. 100%. And that pendulum has gone
way
too
far the other way.
Interesting. I live in San Jose, and the current mayor has actually swung back completely the other side.
You have to, man.
Yeah, which obviously is not a popular thing for the people that think that it's
not for the advocate class. I can't stand it. But then I'm also like, shame on you though for this faux compassion that you have. You're going to allow these people to die with the needle in their arm in filth.
Look, I feel the same way, and I see it, and I have seen it, going through that time. But and again, those are the things that really disturb me. I was like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, is it me? Am I the weird one?
But if you want to put in a bathroom, right? You want to put in a bathroom in your house, right? You better pull the right permit. You want to open up this thing.
Don't even get me started.
Your business wants to also sell this thing from a vendor kiosk. Well, you need to go through it, and you didn't fill out the right forms. But the guy who's dying in front of your business, who takes a shit in front of your doorstep every morning. I mean, what do you want us to do? Right?
I've paid $7,000 for a sewer hookup that I already had in my business.
How about that? Yeah.
$7,000. Why? I'm already hooked up to sewer. Well, because you put in an extra sink.
Society doesn't work that way.
No, exactly.
It's not going to work that way.
So okay.
Come and find a guy like me or people who practice in this area, and you can find that out just be curious. Just ask questions around. There's and then for the briefing room, the stuff that they do is bite-sized distilled videos between 2 and 5 minutes long, where at least you'll hear something and you'll be like, that's really interesting. And it's taught by cops. So it's like, it's at that level where they know how it can be digested. It's funny, when I do these, because I do their video reviews, and I'll say like, well, in this case, there was this weird evidentiary rule, and they're like, that's nerd talk, Phil. Don't do nerd talk stuff, right? Cop level. What's the meat and potatoes that they need? And so those guys are doing a good job of it. Scott Savage is renowned.
Phenomenal presenter.
Yeah. And then I've met, get involved with an organization like CalFIA, and start your own local chapter. Part of this is like, I had such a great experience in the Marine Corps because I had really, really strong enlisted leadership. Yeah. Small unit leadership, my corporals, my sergeants, right? Even down to my lance corporals. And if you seize the initiative, right? And some people don't like it when you seize initiative.
Yep. There is that.
And you know what? Too bad. So what? It's like, that's part of life, right? Institutions can become ossified. That's the nature of institutions. And the only reason that institutions don't fall apart is as they ossify, people at some level decide to revive it, right? By taking the initiative. And so it might just be you need to actually go and do it and check it out. And it takes extra time. But then once you have it, you'll start to get people who will join you.
Well, that's why we're here.
That's exactly why we're here.
And these are all use of force instructors. I mean, most of them are involved in that process somewhere, and they're taking the time out to be here to learn how to do it better, not just the skill on the mat or on the firearms.
Yeah, I met these guys who started CalFIA before CalFIA was CalFIA. And that was the buzz at the time. This is like 2018, 2019. And it was, we got to do something, because they didn't feel like the staff leadership, the brass, so to speak.
Because many of those guys had wound up in the situation that you just explained.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And then when they bring up their concerns to their chain of command, they're told certain things like, well, that's not what we do. And you know what? Fair enough. I mean, the bureaucracies have to function at that level for some extent, but you also need to be like, well, we got to innovate. We got to get ahead of some of this stuff, because it's not working. It's not working for the individual officers and deputies. It's not working for the members of the public. And what we don't want is, ultimately, you don't want someone to be like, either I'm not going to go to any calls, or I'm going to do a half-assed job because I don't want the trouble,
or I don't want the job at all.
I don't want the job at all, so it's going to affect recruitment. Or I really want to do the right thing, but I don't want to get in trouble, and now I hesitated and someone died as a result of that. And that's a terrible thing to happen. And so why not just say, hey, noted.
Right.
Let me get after
Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Just start the figuring out process.
And have the can attitude, as opposed to like, I can't wait.
We don't do it that way.
Yeah. I just want to retire and move to Idaho, which doesn't sound like a totally bad idea, honestly. But, and I might join the ranks of, some mountainous state, right? Later on, when I'm done with practicing law.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. That's part of the plan. That'd be fun. But in the meantime, it's like, no, I want to just get involved. Yeah. And make something out of it.
So you're involved this week and today. You're presenting today.
Yeah.
What's the nature of the presentation today? Because there's a lot of stuff in that brain, man. There's a lot of things you could provide. Yeah. And one of the tough part about coming to these things is taking all the things you know in front of an audience that's maybe very specific, and then putting it in a framework and making it engaging, talking about legal stuff that isn't that exciting, and all that to make. So what is the nature of today in the 90 minutes or whatever that you got to be on stage?
So we're gonna do a couple themes. One theme is that quick doesn't always mean right. And the other thing we're going to do is that based on my training and experience is not an argument, right? It means something. There is undoubtedly, from training and experience, a reason why you did what you did.
But you need to be able to explain it.
You got to be able to explain it. And if you just say based on my training and experience,
that's not an answer.
That's not actually an argument. It's not an answer. It doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? And how do I know it doesn't work? Like, it's not just my opinion. I'm just telling you, like, the binding published case authority that controls within the Ninth Circuit says that doesn't work. So we got to talk through that. And really, like, anytime that I present, and today's going to be the same thing, there's going to be some stuff that, I recycled the old hits. But the focus is always on, you have to unpack these cases in a way that shows you what the framework is. And then once you understand the framework, so the framework meaning, how are the facts of this case analyzed? Once you understand that framework, you can reverse engineer that into decision-making. And the best time to do that decision-making process is before the incident ever even happens.
Just going to say that you said based on training and experience, the questions I would have if I'm an officer, especially, again, listening this week, but and all the people I talk to is if I'm going to say that out loud, and I haven't examined what each one of those words mean, training and experience.
Yeah.
Was I actually trained? What was the level of that training? Can I articulate that? What did I actually get? I was having a conversation with a guy last night who's presenting today, and we're talking about use of force, and it's 4 hours every 2 years. But when he breaks it down and he says, let's say I have 10 students in class, and I have 4 hours. Now, the first hour of that is what I have to sit them down in front of the death by PowerPoint thing, and we have to go through some things. And then I have, let's say, 3 hours left, right? With a break in there maybe or whatever else. So I have 3 hours left, chop out 30 minutes. So I've got 2.5 hours left, right? To now get 10 people through this training, whatever it is, simulator training is what he was describing. Now, for each one of those training or each one of those students, they have to go through the simulator, and that simulator, say, takes 10 minutes to 15 minutes. Right. When you start to calculate out the time, they actually get about 30 minutes of actual reps. Practical reps.
Totally.
Right? So when you say, based on my training, what was your actual training? Right. What did that actually feel like? I would not be confident saying that out loud as a defense for my freedom.
In my own defense, yeah.
In my experience level, like, well, have you ever had to use deadly force on somebody before? So tell me about your experience.
Right.
What experience are we talking about?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had a ton of it in a ton of situations with a ton of different subjects and a ton of different environments and whatever else. Explain that to me. What is your actual experience? That's what I would want to be able to do. So going all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, when I was, again, and I still have them. I just had one 2 weeks ago now to the day where I had to actually go out and get police to come in because they wouldn't even dispatch it out based on some of the things that are happening. And I asked for an explanation. I got an explanation, and based on what I know now, I know why I got that explanation. It's a lot of what you just said. There's a lack of confidence, and it's also, I don't want to get in trouble because I didn't get dispatched out. I cannot contact that guy because if that turns into something where there's an intrusion of his Fourth Amendment right because he acts up or he comes after me, whether he pulls a knife or not. Like, I have to explain why I was there in the first place. Yeah. And this is going to go in front of the DA, and it's going to go in front of a judge, and it's not going to be good. Right. This is the reality of the world you live in, man, which is what that guy was basically telling me. And I go, I understand. I just want him trespassed. Can you at least do that? Yes, we can do that, right? Yeah. I can do that because that's the world we're living in now. And I don't think our citizens, and what I'm hearing is I don't think a lot of our police officers completely understand all the goings on there. And it makes for this, it creates this environment where nobody really knows, but everybody's really fucking pissed off.
Right.
They're either pissed off, right, or they are completely unsure, neither of which are good because there's no middle ground. And again, we're here, and I'm hearing these things, and it sounds like everybody's on the same page, but for whatever the reasons are, this stuff isn't getting out there the way it needs to get out there. And I understand the reasons. I mean, bureaucracy is a huge part of it, or whatever else. But I just go back to, what are my expectations as a citizen? What should they actually be? Right. Then I try to put myself in other people's shoes, be objective here. Like, what should my expectations be of, if I'm a police officer, what should my expectations be in terms of how I'm being trained, what the level of my experience actually is, and how important this piece is, and how misunderstood it is until they're in the wrong place. And I'll just say this, like, not for nothing, like, when it gets to you and you talked about the money that needs to be spent in order to do this, like, I'm sure you're not cheap, man.
No.
I'm sure you're not.
No, it costs a lot.
I'm paying for that shit.
Yes.
Right? Every day. Like, through the city, through the county, and through the state, and through the federal government, like,
it's got to come from somewhere.
It's got to come from somewhere, and it's coming from me. I should want this. I should be advocating for this. I should be asking these questions as a citizen. Tell me about the training and experience your officers or our police department is actually having. Show me the money. Show me where it's going and whatever else, because it's not just this cop sucks and he didn't know what he's doing. He's being a bully and, is beating people up on the street or, whatever the case. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. It's funny too, as I was getting ready for like today and this afternoon and how I want to present some things. So like I'm coaching my 10-year-old son's Pop Warner football team, right?
Fun.
And we have a requirement under USA football, standards that they have to have 10 hours with just a helmet and, conditioning stuff, right? 10 hours before they can put on full pads. And so it made me chuckle because I was like, that sounds to me a lot like you have to do 4 hours of perishable skills training every so often. And stuff. It's like, well, I could do 10 hours of have these kids play dodgeball with the helmet on. And that's not going to make it safer for them to put pads on to play football.
And I haven't taught them how to play the game.
We don't even know pad level yet, right? These are 10-year-old boys. They've got it. You ask them to sit in a half squat and they're like,
sounds good on paper, right? Like
10 hours. 10 hours. I think there should be 10 hours. Yeah, 10 hours. That's good. It's
we're all in agreement. Everybody's hands up, say aye.
When it's like, but it's like during that 10 hours, what are you going to do? And how many reps are they going to get during that 10 hours.
What if the kid was sick that day and he didn't get to come?
So I could tell the assistant coaches, I'm like, do not sacrifice reps for punitive burpees. This isn't about, we'll do burpees at the very end, right? You know, these kids are going to move. We get the conditioning as part of the drill. Yeah. And then I'm like, why don't we just do that in law enforcement? Like, why isn't
conditioning happens in the practicing of the skill?
Part of the skill. Yeah. Like, what are we missing? And again, that's just, you know, and
trying to break it out into all its constituent parts, thinking it fits together.
And there's probably folks who are in law enforcement who are listening to this thinking like, you've never worked inside of a police department. It's true, I haven't. And I've heard the stories about like, you know, no is the favorite word from the training lieutenant or the captain. I get it. Like there's going to be inertia against you, but try to find interesting ways to work around it, because like today's theme about training and experience is not an argument, as you just broke out like that, which was brilliant. It's like your training was 30 minutes in simulation. The rest of everything that you've done, the sort of those automatic processes and stuff, what's the reason behind that? And if the reason behind that is that's just the way I was taught, that also is not an argument. So then it's like, no, really, why did you make that decision?
Talk to me about it.
Yeah, and articulate it in a way where imagine yourself on the stand under oath in front of a live audience, jury.
And the totality of circumstances.
Yeah, and you're going to be able to get that out, right? And answers to questions. There's only so much I can do on redirect to rehabilitate a witness.
Yeah, to bring it back.
And I've had really good witnesses, and I've had not so good witnesses. And witnesses on their own behalf, party witnesses. And the ones that are not good, the one thing about trial is that, yes, evidence matters. Storytelling matters more.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And because we're a story species. We love stories.
Oh, if you don't have one, you're boring.
You don't have one, you got to go to a party, you need a story, right? You want to listen to something on a podcast, you have a story to tell. You want to watch a good movie, better tell a good story. Trials are won by who has the better story.
I don't want somebody else telling my story, man.
Yeah. And so if you can't tell your own story,
somebody's going to do it for you.
And that guy's going to tell a really bad version of that story. And that is what will leave the impression. You can,
on the jury of your peers.
Yeah, your peers. Right, exactly. Yeah. I defended a police officer. The trial verdict did not go our way. The jury of his peers were all, this is a male officer. The jurors were all female except one. And not to say anything wrong with that, but it's just to tell you.
Just the way it worked out.
Just the way it worked out. And their professions ranged from special education teacher to preschool teacher to nurse. And then the one male on the jury was, I think, early 20s, unemployed community college student. And those
making the decision on this guy's life.
Yeah. And it was like they weren't convinced by the story. And so if you cannot articulate things like, well, in my training and experience, and be able to unpack that down to the granular level, what I used to do in some of the times where before I ended up where I am now, where I was just more teaching and less practice. This might be corny, but like I do a report writing section. And I'd say, I'm just going to read you from Steinbeck. We're just going to read Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we're just going to read the last scene, right? Where Rosa Sharon nurses the dying man.
I know it well,
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, 2-3 paragraphs long. It's very short, but it's so impactful.
It's rich. Yeah.
Oh my God. Right. So I read that and I'm like, okay, did everyone picture exactly what it was that happened? Everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, none of us are John Steinbeck, right? We're not going to write to this level, but doggone, man, we can shoot for this, right?
You should want to be, yeah.
To be able to put yourself in the reader's shoes and illustrate what it is. Put it in a different way is like you wrote a movie script for your friends in the department, and you pick a friend to play the part of the suspect, and then you give them your report. That's the script, and then you say go. And if they get to a part where they go, when you write that the suspect was actively resisting, what's my motivation? Like, what did I do? Because it doesn't say. anything. It just says actively resisted or it was uncooperative. It's like, well, yeah, most suspects involved in a use of force incident are uncooperative, right? You got to give me something more than that. Don't just give me the conclusion. Paint the picture for me, right? Do a little Steinbeck, okay? I actually
You're getting an opportunity.
Yeah, tell the story. Tell me what happened. How did it feel? Not like in my emotions feeling, but like, how did that feel when you put hands on that person? How hard did they resist you, right? And maybe we have to break open a thesaurus.
This might be some adjectives that you use
to find, maybe pull is not the right word. Maybe that was more of a wrench. Maybe that was more of a wriggle. Maybe that was more of a snatch, right? So there's a way to describe it with language. The body camera is great, but it doesn't capture everything because it only captures what the lens can see. Yeah. And as soon as you're in a tussle with somebody, and that body camera gets, dislodged and is on the ground, it's only a microphone, right? No one knows what the hell's happening.
So you're giving the soundtrack as whatever.
You've got to tell your thing. And if you can explain to members of the public who are not cops, because the chances of a cop getting past jury selection on your trial is 0. That person will be challenged and they will be asked to leave, right? So you've got to be able to explain this to civilians, and in a way where, it's years afterwards, because that's how long these things take. 2 years statute of limitations. That's assuming it doesn't get told, meaning if from the arrest, there was a criminal prosecution, the time for which that suspect has, as a criminal defendant, to file his civil suit against you is told. It's on timeout until that criminal process is done. Then it's 2 years, okay? Once it's filed, you might not testify at deposition for another 6 to 9 months. And then
it's an eternity, man.
It is an eternity. And if you're in the Eastern District Court of California, this has got the biggest backlog in the country, you are going to trial maybe 2 years from that point. I mean, it's like going to take forever. So by that time, don't you want a good report to be able to refer to? And you get to refer to it as often as you
100%.
possibly can, and you can prepare from it, When was the last time you read your report? I refreshed myself on it this morning. Okay. And then you start asking these questions, and then you can relive that moment and make the jury live it at the same time. Like, you got to be a little descriptive,
I love this. There's got me a lot to think about there, just in terms of literacy levels of the people that are coming into the profession now, or that it currently exists, like what's in the pipeline. I mean, you mentioned Steinbeck. Man, I don't even know if they read Steinbeck anymore.
I don't think they do.
I know we're having arguments about books and on certain subjects that they're in the libraries of our schools, when we should be like, did your kid even read Grapes of Wrath?
No, right? Like, my goddaughter is a freshman going into freshman high school at the same place my buddy and I went, that we're alums from. And, my summer reading going into my freshman year of high school included Lord of the Flies.
Yep.
Among other books, yeah. And he showed me her reading list. And they're like graphic novel kind of thing. And I was like,
I have a 23-year-old, and there was a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm like, this is not good. Because it's not that those things aren't entertaining, it's that they're dumb. It's not good literature. So, you got to exercise your brain a little bit. And it's like, well, when you read something that's good,
it.
Oh my God. You're like, daggone, man. That is, I can't read.
I can't put it down. Now I want to read the next one. Yeah.
Here's not like, just to do a Old Man in the Sea, right? Okay. They're, Hemingway, Old Man in the Sea, the old fisherman. This is, I think, after maybe the first night, he falls asleep in the dolphin that he ends up killing. That he's eating from as he's trying to haul this big sailfish in, and I think he falls asleep with his face in the guts or something like that, and then he's woken up because the marlin or the sailfish that he's got freaking starts to dart again, starts to take off.
He's exhausted.
He's totally exhausted. Yep. And the way Hemingway describes the way that the line was burning through the guy's back and in his hands, and as he's vying again, he's fishing with his hands. And you read that and you're like, oh my God, that's the intensity of that. And you can picture it. It's a visual picture. We speak in a way to make the other person see images. That's how we think. That's how we communicate. And so like you got to figure out what's your voice that you want to write in, and then write the relevant facts. And how do you know what the relevant facts are? This goes full circle back to, well, is it an element under the applicable civil jury instruction? Then yes, then it is relevant. And you do need to figure out a way to describe that.
Talk about it.
Yeah. And share that around with your peers and ask them, be like, does this make sense to you? Right? It doesn't have to be this it doesn't have to be Shakespeare. It's just got to be something that someone can read and say, yeah, I know what's happening there. Mm-hmm. Right?
And then it's on that person to try and make something up that isn't in that report.
Right.
Right. To make you look bad or put that in the brain of a judge or a jury.
Yeah, which is why it's just a small throwaway note. That's why I think the jargon is so terrible about guiding to the ground, escorting to the ground, assisting to the ground. I deployed my taser, did not have the desired effect. It's like, you're not wearing a lab coat with a clipboard looking for desired effects or not, right? Someone was attacking you and you shot them in the chest with a weapon that shoots electrified harpoons, right? You shot them, and what did they do once you shot them? If it didn't have the desired effect, what does that mean? Does that mean they tore the thing from their chest? He tore the barbs from his own chest
while still moving,
while still advancing on me
with the knife in his hand.
Yeah, with knife in his hand, and continued to attack, continued to level his assault. It's like that. If I read that in a report, I'd be like, oh my God, you know. You get stuff that's like, and tell me when we need to wrap, because I can keep going on this stuff. But I've got.
No, I think these are the practical examples I think people want to hear.
Sure. So like a good buddy of mine, and I won't call him out, but those on the inside will know. He got ambushed in the Sally Port when he was booking somebody. Bad guy. He was cooperative with the search the whole time through. And then as he was in the Sally Port, he's like, oh, he had already uncuffed him because he's going to put him in the holding cell. And he's like, oh, I didn't check your shoes. Right? The guy still had his shoes on. But the guy was super cooperative leading up to that point. He's like, hey, man, can you take your shoes off real quick for me? And the guy's like, no. And it's like, oh, here we go. You need to take your shoes off now. No, I'm not taking my shoes off. And before that got much further down the line, this guy went both hands. It's on. He went both hands up to my buddy's throat, choking, arms length, like lockout up against the wall. My boy can fight, so there was a tussle, and luckily there was a kerfuffle. There was a spat, and he got the upper hand of it, and the suspect was eventually subdued, and we put in the holding cell and all that. And then he had to write a report about it, and so the way it was described. The ambush, the assault, it was very rapid and violent and unforeseen. Yeah. Was that the suspect moved his hands toward my face and neck area. And so I just demonstrated it to him where I was like, was it like this? Because I'm moving my hands towards your neck and face area. Like, this is me moving my hand towards your neck and face. And he goes, no, it didn't look like that at all.
Didn't look like that at all.
He was choking me. And I go,
tell me how it went.
I don't see the word choking anywhere in this thing. And I know we've seen the video. We know you were choked, right? He goes, what? It happened so fast. I didn't know what was going on, but I just felt this pain. I couldn't breathe. Afterwards, my throat like really, really hurt.
Write that down.
And I was like, that's a great bracket sentence or a great parenthetical description of suddenly and without warning, the suspect attacked me. I felt I couldn't breathe. My neck hurt, right? That's just a simple, like, my neck hurt. You could even come up with like, sure. A thesaurus and it hurt, and we come up with a better way of describing it.
Get on that pocket computer.
Yeah, and then we fought, and the suspect fought intensely for however long it lasted. Now, you could go by memory how long that lasted, and your memory is going to be like, I don't really know, man. That seemed like it took forever. Or you could watch the video and just say, it was like 28 seconds of fighting.
For 1 minute and 13 and a half seconds.
Right? And then put a period on that, and then put a parentheses of, in the moment, I was in such pain and surprise. I didn't know that the suspect was choking me. Having looked at the video, the suspect had me with arms extended and locked out with both hands wrapped around my neck. Period.
I can pretty much see that. I have the picture in my head. Right?
Yeah, totally.
I actually think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
That said, I get you. That's when I said practical example.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about a lot of things, and you said about like what not to do. That was perfect. Like that's how to write like Steinbeck, right? On a thing that probably happens pretty commonly.
Right? Happens all the time,
right? Yeah. So I was going to like, why am I hearing like, why is that officer who at the time I know is a pretty experienced dude? Why is he hearing that from somebody for the first time?
For the first time, way
this deep into the thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And had something. So to my knowledge, no lawsuit had ever come from it. But had something come from that, then for the first time ever, he's going to say, I was being choked, is going to be under oath at a deposition. And the first question and follow-up that any experienced plaintiff's attorney is going to ask is, I don't read that in your report. Did you include that in your report?
Tell me about that.
And he goes, no, I didn't include it in my report. Aren't you trained to include all relevant information in your report?
This isn't your first incident based on these other things. Like you're experienced.
Exactly. Now we start to pick through this. So do you always write reports where you don't include key facts?
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, that's their job.
Yeah. And there is...
And you're sitting there as the defense attorney going, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Because now you have to walk in and try to unfuck that.
Yeah.
Right? And that's going to sound like you're coaching a guy on the stand. And
I can't lead him on redirect. I have to be able to ask it open-ended. We have to be able to explain it. And by the way, at a deposition, the guy gets 7 hours with you. Right? That's what the rules allow.
He's going to keep going over and over and over again.
He's going to go. And at some point, I can jump in and be like, you're done asking that line of questioning. And he can say, I'm entitled to keep asking. And I go, well, then I'm going to get a protective order. We're going to suspend now. We're going to have to do all this stuff. Then I got to go in front of a magistrate 30 days later who's going to say, Mr. Downs, it seems like this is a relevant line of inquiry. And
because
say,
you said hands towards your face and choked. All you had to do was just write it out.
It's just one word.
Write out what was going on there, man.
So that's fraught with problems because now it's a credibility issue. And, the euphemisms, those will get called out. And another practical example, at trial, my client, my officer's on the stand, and I'm defending his testimony at trial. And he had written in his, we won this trial, by the way. So the suspect, the call came in as basically the guy was threatening to kill his niece. And when the officers arrived on scene, pre-body camera, they observed the suspect on the front lawn of this house with a big tree branch in his hands, and he's freaking shouting at everybody, I'm going to put a bullet in your head, I'm going to put a bullet in your head, but going nuts. So officers approach and they say, put that down. He doesn't. He starts advancing towards the officer. He gets taken down on the ground pretty violently. Like armbar-esque kind of technique to use it. But the way it's written in the report is that I assisted the suspect to the ground. So
face first. Face and chest first.
Yes. And resulting in some good abrasions and bruising and some other stuff, right? It was a rough assistance. So
contradictory.
Totally. Yeah. So the attorney had kind of danced around that at deposition, but didn't, for whatever reason, like I think he was just saving it for trial. And sure shit, he's cross-examining the officer, and he goes, and at that time, so he's walking through chronologically, and he goes, and at that time, that's when you made contact with my client. And he goes, yes. And he goes, now you wrote a report following. Now my radar's up. I'm like, here it comes. It's coming right now. And he says, in your report, you wrote that you assisted my client to the ground. That's what you wrote, right? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, that's not actually what happened. Did my client ask you for assistance? No, he didn't. In fact, you did not assist my client to the ground because he didn't need to get to the ground, did he? He wasn't asking you to help him to get to the ground. No, he didn't ask me to help him get to the ground. And we had prepped this. This was like, I was like, there's going to be one chance if he doesn't ask the next question correctly, you can jump through that window.
Yep, you're done.
Flip this thing around.
You're done.
Or our credibility is shot. So I was like, so you better be ready to jump through that window. And you got lucky. The guy asked the question in a way that was open enough
for him to go.
Yeah, so the question was something like, it's actually true that you violently tackled my client to the ground. And he goes, I don't deny that I tackled your client to the ground. And he goes, then why did you write assist? That's open-ended. That's a no-no. You can't ask.
As an attorney.
As an attorney, you're cross-examining.
When you're there, you're starting to go there.
You ask the why because you want to argue. You give the witness the way out.
So it's either a rookie move or an emotional response.
It was emotional. And so, because it was the way, like the build up and everything, and he let it slip.
He went right to the edge.
He was just like, well, so why'd you write assist?
Blew it, bro.
Yeah. So you're writing something in your report that didn't happen. He goes, I wrote my report mostly focusing on the fact that it was reported that your client had threatened the lives of several people at the scene. And I admit I used a euphemistic shortcut to describe what had happened. I was more focused on establishing the important parts of the crime that
how we got there.
That your client had committed. Yeah. And then the guy was like, damn. So there's a way to kind of do it. And then you got to read and feel the jury to be like, okay, the jury liked that response. Mm-hmm. But as it was going up to that point, you can feel. We're sensory animals, man. You can feel when someone feels uncomfortable about something. It was definitely like, where is this? Or did this guy lie? In his report, he tried to make it sound like he actually did.
From the juror's perspective.
Yeah, because they don't know cop jargon.
They have no idea.
Yeah, cops know cop jargon. Cops know that assist to the ground means you took him down. Right. So then you juxtapose that with reality, and a civilian hears that, they're like, why are you being weird? Right? Why don't you just say it?
Use of force is use of force. You better be able to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I go home today and my wife asks me how my day was, and I go, well, it wasn't a terrible day. And she's going to be like, well, what happened? I go, well, I mean, it wasn't terrible. Like, don't you understand what I mean by that? I'm sort of just hinting at something, like.
There's more to the story.
Yeah. She's going to be like, maybe you didn't go to the CalFIA conference.
Well, did anybody die?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Why are you being such a weirdo? And so that's of paramount importance, is as from a practical standpoint, tying all of this together is that it will make sense to the officer to write to the objective facts that are relevant to the applicable legal framework. And to get to that point, you got to start at the source, which is understanding and reading case authority, being more involved with organizations, whether it's CalFIA, whether you find other like-minded people in your department who are like interested in case law. Be like, we need to do some more to figure out, how to play the game that we're playing. Yep. It's a critical game. It's a life and death game, but to play it to the most effective way possible, it's better for everybody. I
think one of the themes in one of the presentations yesterday was your tactics, their laws.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is a very tactical approach to making sure you hit all the proper steps and don't make any wrong turns. Because
this is all going to reverse engineer into a tactical decision making process and a tactical execution plan.
Yeah.
And if there's a gap between the two, if there's a gap between the understanding of the law and the tactical decisions that are made, then it could be a problem.
Could be a problem.
Or you're only accidentally right.
Ooh, that's another one.
Yeah.
I don't want to, that's not the world I want to live in.
No.
If I'm in that situation, man, with the gravity that exists.
Yeah.
Such a good job at, again, uncomplicating the very complex stuff. And I mean, I could sit and, I'm sure you have a million stories, which, we could go through and examples of where not to do things, how to make sure you're talking about things that actually didn't happen, which, led to why I made my decisions, right? What they didn't do, which are based on my experience, right? Usually, typically I will see this 90% of the time, I will see this happen. This person did not do that, which led me to my next step of, as I've described in this report so eloquently, like Steinbeck or Hemingway.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like a lot. So people listening to this, if they're still with us, as somebody from the outside looking in, man, like there's so much clarity in that for me, right? Yeah. And again, I'm very fortunate to have some really great experiences, like just sitting down in front of you today and trying to understand it more from partly for my own self-satisfaction, but at the same time, to get it out there to so many of my friends and people that I know that are connected to law enforcement, whether they're officers or their wives or husbands or whatever in that space, or they support them in training companies, or, whether that's, again, on whatever skill they're trying to learn or whatever thing. And I know it'll reach people in a way that make them think a little bit differently about maybe even how they're articulating their own instruction, and maybe asking more questions about prior to going into even the group that they're teaching, like, hey, how just to get them to think about it, how does this apply, or how could this impact what you do on the job? Let me ask the question before I teach it this way, because I might articulate it a different way as to not create any confusion, right? Or whatever, or check in with the right people. So there's a relationship building piece that goes on there, which, again, going back, I'm sure these folks that you're defending are like, this is my best friend in the world. Like, and then, like the text
you get tight.
Yeah, you get pretty tight. And you wouldn't be doing this. I can tell you're the guy that reciprocates that in some way. Like, look, 100%. Man, I got you. You're the leader. Yeah. You Marine Corps, right. all the stuff, the kids, the football team. Yeah. So let me put my arm around you, make sure you're good.
And then let me come back to places like this and do things like
100%.
Like this
to back.
To sit. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's because at a very deep level, it matters what the relationship is between the citizenry and its government. That's the whole flipping experiment that we're trying out right now, right? Is can you organize a society this way and do it? And the police it's such a flashpoint issue, because police officers are the personification, they're the embodiment, the physical embodiment of the state's authority. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it visceral, right? So if there's something in society, whether founded or unfounded, that creates suspicion around the integrity of the law enforcement.
Integrity, yep.
Fucking stand by, right? It's bad for everybody. I mean, the reliability and integrity of institutions is critical to our ability to organize a free society. If we do not believe our institutions, we become unmoored. We
learn that in spades.
Oh, and it's these strategic Lance Corporal kind of events where, like, it's the one guy in Minneapolis who got on video kneeling on a dude's neck is cause for, I don't know, billions,
cities to be burned down,
billions in costs and lives ruined, and et cetera. And it's like that had an outside.
There's a lot of weight there.
That had an outside effect, yeah. And so we should just look at that and say, not in reaction should not be, it cannot be, well, I'm just not going to do anything then. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, no, man, like, we need you, right? People need you.
My mom calls 911. My daughter calls 911.
Right. You want cops showing up. You don't want them to be like, I don't want to get sued. I don't want to end up like that. I don't want to get prosecuted. And it's like, and like my little brother, so my little brother got shot in the head, like right after he finished his probationary period. He survived it miraculously. And like, I know that kid's heart is freaking good, right? He wants to do good. He would give everything he's got. And there's a lot of cops like that who will do that. My dad was like that. And that's important. And so it means something to me to be able to be involved in the process of trying to keep the relationship between the state and the citizenry as amicable as it possibly can be through this weird federal litigation process that we have, even if it's that one piece that I get to be involved in or do stuff like this, sit down with cool people like you and talk about this stuff.
Well, it's important to me too.
Yeah.
And there's players in all of it, right? There's all these different levels and layers, and that's just where the kind of how the podcast has gone. Like, we're just digging into, because I think I get a good understanding of one layer of this, and maybe I do, and then I get introduced to this next layer, and like, whoa, I got questions here. Like, what is going on with this? And because of people like you just described, that's how I get introduced to them, and that's how these conversations come up. So I mean, I consider myself, like I said, extraordinarily privileged and fortunate to be able to sit down. And so again, I just want to say thank you for sharing your time,
of course,
and energy, right? And passion, examples, helping my, alligator brain understand things better, because I think there's a lot of folks out there that listen to this and watch this that they want things, they want to hear the conversation, and they want to hear it in a way that they can assimilate it, whether they're cops or citizens or whatever the case is, whatever they're doing in life. It's interesting. That's actually a really broad audience, and it's always important to me to make sure that whatever we do, we bring value to them. And I am absolutely convinced you did that today.
Well, thank you.
So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yep, you got it.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
you got it.
Thank you.